The world of late-night television is not what it used to be. The crux of most late-night talk shows nowadays come down to a few simple things. A charismatic host, a monologue covering the biggest stories of the day, tons of political humor, sketches for characters and recurring segments that are more miss than hit, fluff-piece questions to the guests, a comedic sidekick, a house band, and a musical performance by a special guest to wrap the night up. It's a lot of the formula that the legends like Johnny Carson perfected back in the day, but now it's taken to a level where late-night TV is safer and more marketable and memeable than offbeat, over-the-top, zany, and even a little offensive. It's been that way for quite some time, but there are still some that are able to take that concept and still make it entertaining. You got your Stephen Colbert's, your Seth Meyers, your Jimmy Kimmel's, and even people like John Oliver and the guys at The Daily Show have not lost a beat in accomplishing what made them so enjoyable to watch in the first place. Conan O'Brien and David Letterman pioneered late-night zaniness and over-the-top offbeat comedy with their late-night shows in the 80s and 90s. But a lot of people out there don't realize that in the 2000s, there was somebody else who was changing the late-night game for a new generation. That was kind of just in the background, while others like Conan, Kimmel, Letterman, Leno, Stewart, and Colbert were leading the charge. Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Ferguson.
Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Ferguson.
Craig Ferguson was born on May 17, 1962 in Stobhill Hill Hospital in the Springburg district of Glasgow to Robert, a post office worker and Scottish nationalist, and Janet Ferguson, a primary school teacher. When he was 6 months old, he and his family moved from their Springburg flat to a development corporation house in the nearby new town of Cumbernauld, where he grew up chubby and bullied. They lived there as Cumbernauld was rehousing many Glaswegians away from their poor housing conditions and damage to the city from World War II. Ferguson attended Muirfield Primary School and Cumbernauld High School. At age 16, Ferguson left high school and began an apprenticeship to become an electronics technician at a local factory of American company Burroughs Corporation. Ferguson has two sisters, one older and one younger, and one older brother. Her younger sister, Lynn Ferguson Tweedle, is also a comedian, presenter, and actress who voiced Mac in the 2000 stop-motion animated film Chicken Run and was a writer on Craig Ferguson's Late Late Show until July 2011. His first visit to the United States was in 1975, when he was 13, to visit an uncle who lived on Long Island near New York City. When he moved to New York City in 1983, he worked in construction in Harlem. He was later a bouncer at the nightclub Save the Robots before returning to the United Kingdom. Ferguson's entertainment career began as a teenager, drumming for Glasgow punk bands such as the Night Creatures and Exposure. He then had a brief stint as a drummer for the post-punk band Anna Housen, which released a single for Human Records in 1981. Following that, he joined punk band The Bastards from Hell, later renamed the Dream Boys, and fronted by vocalist and future actor Peter Capaldi. They performed regularly in Glasgow from 1980 to 1982. Ferguson credits Capaldi for inspiring him to trying comedy. When Ferguson was 18, he worked as a session musician and performed as a drummer for Nico during a few gigs while she toured Scotland. After a nerve-wracking first comedy appearance, he decided to create a character he described as a parody of all the uber-patriotic native folk singers who seemed to affect every public performance in Scotland, using the name Bing Hitler, borrowed from Peter Capaldi. Ferguson first performed as the character in Glasgow and was subsequently a hit in the 1986 Edinburgh Festival Fringe. However, by the end of the year, Ferguson was already discussing his intention to retire Bing. At the press launch for an alternative pantomime of Sleeping Beauty, which he co-wrote with Capaldi, he said, "You can't write for just one character forever." A recording of his act as Bing Hitler was made at Glasgow's Tron Theatre and released in the 1980s. A Bing Hitler monologue, a lecture for Burns Night, appeared on the compilation cassette Honey at the Core. After enjoying success at the Edinburgh Festival, Ferguson appeared on television as Confidence in Red Dwarf on STV's Hogmanay shows and on the 1993 One Foot in the Grave Christmas special, One Foot in the Algrave. In 1990, a pilot of The Craig Ferguson Show, a one-off comedy pilot from Granada Television, was broadcasted, co-starring Paul Whitehouse and Helen Atkinson Wood.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Craig Ferguson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Craig Ferguson Show. My name's Craig Ferguson. This is my show. This is my audience. These are my trousers. This is my haircut. So shut up!
In 1991, Channel 4 asked him to host Friday at the Dome, a 75-minute live music show, and in 1992, he was given his own BBC Scotland show. 2000, Not Out. In 1993, he presented the 6-part archaeological TV series The Dirt Detective for STV, and was given a 6-part TV series on BBC One, The Ferguson Theory, a mix of stand-up and sketches recorded the day before transmission. Ferguson also found success in musical theater. Beginning in 1991, he appeared on stage as Brad Majors in the London production of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. In 1994, he played Father McLean in productions of Bad Boy Johnny and the Prophets of Doom at the Union Capitol in London. That year, he appeared again at the Edinburgh Fringe as Oscar Madison in The Odd Couple. Ferguson moved to Los Angeles in November 1994 after his soon-to-be agent Rick Siegel had seen Ferguson during the Edinburgh Festival and suggested that he come to America. His first U.S. role was as Baker Logan McDonough on the 1995 short-lived ABC comedy series Maybe This Time with Betty White and Marie Osmond. His breakthrough in the U.S. came when he was cast on The Drew Carey Show as the title character's boss, Mr. Wick, a role he would play between 1996 and 2003. He played the role with an over-the-top posh English accent, explaining it was to make up for generations of English actors doing crap Scottish accents. In his comedy special, A Wee Bit of Revolution, he specifically identified James Doohan's portrayal of Montgomery Scott on Star Trek as the foundation of his revenge. At the end of one episode, though, Ferguson broke the fourth wall and began talking to the audience at home in his regular Scottish accent. His character was memorable for his unique methods of laying employees off, almost always firing Johnson, the most common last name of the to-be-fired workers. Even after leaving the show in 2003, he remained a recurring character on the series for the last 2 seasons and was part of the 2-part series finale in 2004. During the production of The Drew Carey Show, Ferguson devoted his off time as a cast member to writing, working in his trailer on set in between shooting his scenes. He wrote and starred in 3 films, The Big Tease, Saving Grace, and I'll Be There. He also directed the latter, for which he won the Audience Award for Best Film at the Aspen, Dallas, and Valencia Film Festivals. He was named Best New Director at the Napa Valley Film Festival. There were among other scripts that, in the great tradition of the movie business, about half a dozen that I got paid a fortune but never got made. His other acting credits include Niagara Motel, Lenny the Wonder Dog, Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, Chain of Fools, Born Romantic, The Ugly Truth, Kick-Ass, and as a voiceover actor, the How to Train Your Dragon movies, Brave, and Winnie the Pooh. Ferguson had been touring the United States and Canada with a comedy show since the late 2000s, including a performance at Carnegie Hall on October 23, 2010, and a performance at Radio City Music Hall on October 6, 2012. He performed 2 stand-up TV specials for Comedy Central, both released on DVD, A Wee Bit of Revolution in 2009, and Does That Need to Be Said in 2011. His 3rd comedy special, I'm Here to Help, was released on Netflix in 2013, garnering positive reviews of 4 out of 5 stars on Netflix and peaking at number 6 on Billboard's top comedy albums. It also received a 2014 Grammy Award nomination for Best Comedy Album. Ferguson was awarded the Peter Ustinov Comedy Award by the Banff World Media Festival on June 11, 2013.
Good evening, folks, and welcome back. I'm Tom. This is the Late Late Show, up and running now for January the 10th, 1995. The simulcast underway for Tuesday, early Wednesday.
The Late Late Show is an American late-night TV talk and variety show that originally aired from January 9, 1995 to April 27, 2023 on CBS. Tom Snyder was the show's first host. The show originated from Television City in Los Angeles. Snyder hosted the program from its inception in January 1995 until March of 1999. The choice of Snyder as host was made by David Letterman, whose contract with CBS gave him, via his production company Worldwide Pants, the power to produce the show in the time slot immediately after his own program, and who had an affinity for Snyder, whose NBC late-night show Tomorrow had been succeeded by Late Night with David Letterman. The time slot on CBS previously carried repeats of Crime Time after Prime Time. Snyder departed his job at CNBC to host the Late Show on CBS. Letterman had offered the Late Late Show to Gary Shandling, a former permanent guest host of The Tonight Show, but Shandling turned it down in order to keep working on The Larry Sanders Show. NBC had previously approached Shandling about succeeding Letterman on Late Night, but he also declined that offer, and that job ultimately went to Conan O'Brien. He also offered the show to later host Bob Costas, who also declined. Shandling lampooned the selection process on an episode of The Larry Sanders Show entitled Life After Larry, in which Snyder was poached from the post-Letterman time slot for the spot following the fictional Sanders Show. Letterman then insisted on Snyder, despite CBS wanting a younger host with a comedy background in a more traditional late-night talk variety format. In 1998, the network reportedly reasserted its desire for a host who could attract a younger demographic and asked Worldwide Pants not to renew Snyder's contract when it expired in September 1999. Though other reports portrayed the decision to leave as Snyder's decision, with Snyder informing management that he wished to depart before his contract ended as early as January 1999. Snyder would return to CBS to guest host some episodes of The Late Show while Letterman recuperated from heart surgery in 2000. Longtime late-night TV producer Peter LaSalle was executive producer of Snyder's iteration of the show and mentioned Jon Stewart when he was a guest host filling in for Snyder. When Snyder announced he was leaving, the show was reformatted to resemble Letterman and other major late-night talk programs. Craig Kilborn took over in March of 1999, having left The Daily Show, which he had been succeeded later by Jon Stewart, to become the new Late Late Show host. Previously, he was an anchor on ESPN SportsCenter. Kilborn left the program on August 27, 2004, 2 weeks after surprising executives at CBS and Worldwide Pants by announcing after several weeks of talks that he was not seeking a contract renewal. In a June 2010 interview, Kilborn stated that he left late-night television due to his belief that the late-night time slot was too crowded for him to succeed. Executive producer Peter LaSalle later claimed that Kilborn quit because he did not get the raise he wanted. With Kilborn only announcing his exit in August, that he would not be returning to the Late Late Show in the fall, CBS and Worldwide Pants executives decided to have a series of guest hosts helm the show in on-air auditions. While initially saying that they would choose a permanent host by the end of October, the process ended up extending into December. Drew Carey was the first guest host on September 20th, 2004, and again the following night. Other guest hosts included Jason Alexander, Jeff Altman, Tom Arnold, Michael Ian Black, Tom Caltabino, Adam Carolla, Tom Dreesen, David Duchovny, Damian Fahey, Jim Gaffigan, Anna Gasteyer, David Alan Grier, D.L. Hughley, Lisa Joyner, Donna Rogue, Rosie Perez, Ahmad Rashad, Jim Rome, Aisha Taylor, and the Late Late Show head writer Michael Gibby Gibbons, culminating in 4 finalists before being involved in week-long final tryouts. Craig Ferguson was among those people, along with D.L. Hughley, Damian Fahey, and Michael Ian Black. It was announced on December 7, 2004, that Ferguson, a Scottish comedian best known for his work as Mr. Wick on The Drew Carey Show, was to become Kilborn's permanent replacement. David Letterman later said he made the selection based on the recommendation of Peter LaSalle. Following the conclusion of the on-air auditions on December 3rd, guest hosts continued to fill in the roster until the end of the year, including Jason Alexander, Donna Logue, David Alan Grier, Aisha Tyler, Drew Carey, Sarah Rue, John Witherspoon, Joe Buck, Susan Sarandon, Don Cheadle, Daryl Mitchell, Bob Saget, Jim Rome, Anna Gasteyer, Damian Fahey, and D.O. Hughley.
It's hard to stay up, it's been a long, long day, and you've got the Sandman at your door. But hang on, leave the TV on, and let's do it anyway. It's okay, you can always sleep through work tomorrow, okay? Hey, hey, tomorrow's just your future yesterday.
Ladies and gentlemen, your host, Craig Ferguson.
You know, I'll expect that every night if you do that. So let's just, you know, calm down. It's all right. Be nice. Thank you so much. Thank you. Hi.
I'm Craig Ferguson. I'm the new host of The Late Late Show. Yeah. Yep. Yes, I was caller number 5. I'm the new show. I'm the new host of this show, and I've got to be honest, I am the happiest man alive. Well, except perhaps for Conan O'Brien. It's
Craig Ferguson's first show as host was on January 3rd, 2005. For approximately the first 2 months, he continued his predecessor's monologue format, reading 5 to 10 jokes from cue cards. He would ad-lib between the jokes and soon noticed that the stuff in between got the most reaction from his audience. After that realization, he decided he and his writers would stop writing jokes. Craig's first guests on the show were David Duchovny and Nicole Sullivan, the latter of whom Ferguson dated back in 1994 when Ferguson first came to America from Scotland. The show began as your typical talk show format, but as the show continued to evolve over time, there was more of an emphasis on more quirkier comedy, more dark humor, and more creative control, as it really did seem like CBS was more than willing to let Craig Ferguson and his crew get away with so much zaniness and chaos that they would with any other show on the network. For over the first 2 years of the Craig Ferguson era, the show went relatively unknown, with the show doing decently well ratings-wise for CBS, although it was always behind Conan O'Brien in the ratings. However, in February 2007, the show found its first breakthrough moment. On February 19, 2007, Ferguson announced that he would do no Britney Spears jokes, saying comedy should have a certain amount of joy in it, and that it shouldn't include attacking the vulnerable. What followed next with Ferguson was something that nobody expected to happen. Ferguson opening up about the time he thought about committing suicide back in the 1990s.
I want to talk about something tonight that's been bothering me for a little while now. Now, you know, if you've ever seen this show before, I know that's not everybody, but I know that tonight, no Britney Spears jokes, and here's why. Here's exactly why. Britney Spears. No, it's true. Wait. I'm not doing that. Brent, listen, when the kind of weekend she had, she was checking in out of rehab, she was shaving her head, getting tattoos. That's what she was doing this weekend. This Sunday, I was 15 years sober. So I looked at her weekend, and I looked at my own weekend, and I thought, you know, I'd rather have my weekend. But what she's going through reminds me of what I was doing. It's an anniversary, you start to think about it. It reminds me of where I was 15 years ago when I was living like that. Now, I'm not saying Britney Spears is an alcoholic. I don't know if she's an alcoholic or not. But she clearly needs help. And now what I do here is I speak for myself. There's speculation. There's always speculation if you're on television about somebody's behind it. There's a corporation, the production people. There's not. This is me. All right? It's me and you, right? And Christmas morning, before I got sober, I had been on an all-night bender. And I woke up in a room above a bar. I'd been in that pub the night before. It was Christmas Eve. I was going to have a drink and then go home. I was in London. I was going to go to Scotland, but, you know, the one thing led to another. I stayed in the room above a pub, you know, and I woke up on Christmas morning, and I was, you know, I was soaked in my own urine. At least I think it was mine. I can't be certain. I woke up that morning. Now, this is the mind of an alcoholic. I woke up that morning, Christmas morning, and I thought, you know, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to kill myself today. I'm going to do it today. And what I did was, I thought, I made a plan as I'm getting myself together. I thought, I'll go down to Tower Bridge in London, which is the one that goes, you know, that one, and I'll swan dive to my death. I don't know how to swan dive, but I was going to do it. And I thought, by showing, you know, by doing this, I'll show them. I didn't even know who they were, but I was going to show them. I was desperate. I was desperately confused and desperately twisted and turned upside down by whatever the hell was going on in my head. You know, and on the way out of the bar, you know, Tommy, the barman that I'd been drinking with, you know, he was kind of playing around at the bar. He was getting drinks together at the bar in the morning. Now, he had slept behind the bar all night. I'm not saying he's an alcoholic, but he slept behind the bar all night. He was an Irish fella, Tommy, and he said to me, "Where are you going?" And I didn't want to cause a fuss and say, well, you know, I'm going to go to Tower Bridge just one day and kill myself. So I said, I'm going home. And he said, to Scotland? I said, yeah. He said, well, there's no transport. It's Christmas. You can't get a bus. The planes aren't running. You can't go anywhere. I said, just let me go, Tommy, will you? And he said, well, before you go, have a glass of sherry for Christmas morning. And I said, oh, all right, all right. So he poured me the type of glass of sherry that only an alcoholic would pour you, a venti sherry, they would call it in Starbucks. And I had my glass of sherry, and, one thing led to another, and I forgot to kill myself that day. Here's the important point. The alcohol saved my life. I was self-medicating. I'm an alcoholic. I needed alcohol. I needed something, And from that point on, until February the 18th the following year, it's all a bit foggy. I would wake up and play. I was on a wild bender. I was doing stand-up gigs, apparently. On the day I finally decided to stop, I called a friend of mine who had disappeared out of the pub world and gotten sober. There was scuttlebutt about him in the bars. And I called him up and I said, I need help. And he said, yeah, I've been expecting this call. And he got me into a rehab. And it wasn't like the way the rehab is or portrayed in the news outlets at the moment. And so what happened is, I stuck with it. I was in. Now, there is a myth that goes around popular culture, I think, right now as well, which is that alcoholism can be cured by a 28 stint in rehab. I'm sorry to annoy the censors, but that is horse. That is horse. It is not my experience. And for me, there's two types of rehab clinics. There's the good ones that say to you, you've done your 28 days, this is the beginning. You now have a lifetime of vigilance. This is a chronic condition that you're going to have to manage, deal with the rest of your life. And the bad ones, the bad rehab centers will say, you're good, off you go, The point I'm trying to make to you is this. Now, I have been sober 15 years. There is absolutely no way I have a drinking problem. I don't have a drinking problem. I can get one fast, but I don't have a drinking problem. I have a thinking problem. I want to make something clear to you. I'm not advocating temperance. I'm not advocating that. I'm saying this is for me. If I could drink, I would drink, but I can't. You can't say, to kids, drink responsibly. You can say to me, drink responsibly, and I'll say, I'll try. But I can't. Certain types of people can't drink. I'm one of them. I threw in the towel with alcoholism 15 years ago, and I've been trying for the last 15 years to get little bits of it back. And it looks to me a little bit that Britney Spears has a similar problem going on with alcohol. This woman has 2 kids. She's 25 years old. She's a baby herself. She's a baby, And the thing is, you can embarrass somebody to death. It's embarrassing to admit you're an alcoholic. It's embarrassing to wake up in your pee or someone else's pee. It doesn't really matter. It's embarrassing. Now, I'm not absolving this woman of her behaviour. I'm not. You have to be responsible for your actions, sick or well. You have to be responsible for your actions. You just have to be. All of us are accountable. You have to be. If you have, God forbid you have a kidney problem, you don't go into dialysis. It's your responsibility to somehow get yourself to dialysis. It's your responsibility to deal with the condition that you have in whatever way you can. Now, all of us in America and in Scotland and anywhere I've ever been in my life, everybody knows an alcoholic. They're either they've worked for one, or they have one work for them, they have a parent or a sibling or a child. Everybody. There's not one of us. It does a friend. God forbid some of you poor people are married to them. You know what it's like. Now, I have found this. You can't beat it with money. If you could beat this rap with money, rich people wouldn't die. You can't. For me, only for me, and I only speak for myself, so I've got to stress this to you, I have found that the only way I could deal with it is find other people who had similar experiences and talk to them. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost a thing. And they're very, very easy to find. They're very near the front of the telephone book. Good luck.
He referenced his 15 years of sobriety and the struggles he had with addiction, almost ending in suicide. Despite Ferguson's initial trepidation over how the monologue would be received, it earned widespread support from both industry peers and viewers, and has resurfaced over the internet several times since its broadcast in relation to Britney Spears' subsequent media attention. It was the first time a mass majority of the industry became aware of Craig Ferguson, and the fact that he wasn't just a straightforward, wacky, zany guy, but he can open up about these deeper, darker issues of his personal life. It's a rare moment in late-night television when a personality is there to make you laugh and they're dealing the cold, hard truths of life, making you realize that they're normal people just like you. While quirky comedy was emphasized in the majority of the episodes, Ferguson also addressed difficult subject matters such as the death of his parents, his struggles with alcoholism, and commenting on national tragedies such as the September 11th attacks. Another example of Ferguson's more serious approach to the late-night show, and more of a sense that he had an affection for the shows of Jack Paar, Steve Allen, and Tom Snyder, came on March 4, 2009. On that show, he dedicated the entire show to his guest, Archbishop Desmond Tutu. The cold open and monologue featured a brief history of South Africa and apartheid, and the show was airing during a week of change in late night with the premiere of the new Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, a show that was competing with the Late Late Show occurring 2 days earlier. The interview received critical praise from the NPR TV critic David Bianculli, who called the episode's monologue nothing less than an entertaining, understandable, shocking, thorough history of South African politics and colonization, and its interview inspirational almost beyond measure. The show was given a Peabody Award on March 30th, 2010 for broadcasting excellence in news and entertainment. It would not be the last time the show would experiment with the old late-night format. On January 14, 2010, Ferguson said in the cold open that he would not talk about the trouble at late night at NBC, the Leno O'Brien situation. I've talked about that in length, because there was an actual news story about an earthquake in Haiti. Commenting on Rush Limbaugh's statement, "We already donated to Haiti, it's called U.S. income tax," he said, "Rush Limbaugh has to fill a lot of airtime with saying things and occasionally saying garbage, and God knows I do that every night here." He told Limbaugh that the way to take the sting out of his statement was to donate $1 million of his money to the Red Cross, and will say no more about it. On February 23, 2010, Ferguson did a show with a single guest and without a studio audience, a format in part inspired by Tom Snyder, who had hosted Tomorrow in the first 5 years of The Late Late Show in such a format. According to Ferguson, the Tonight Show host and time slot conflict got him to reflect on the late-night tradition started by Steve Allen, Jack Paar, and Johnny Carson, and lovingly deconstructed by David Letterman, and prompted him to try such an experiment. Ferguson's guest for the hour was Stephen Fry. On February 1, 2011, the show was dedicated to an examination of African American history and culture in honor of February being Black History Month in the United States. Ferguson stated at the top of the show that as a recent immigrant to the country, he was not very knowledgeable about the topic and would use that night's episode to educate himself. He also declared at the top of the show that there would be no skeleton and no horse during the night's taping, in reference to, of course, Jeff Peterson, the Secretariat. His guests that night were Cornel West and George Clinton, who also performed One Nation Under a Groove with his band Parliament Funkadelic. On August 23, 2011, Ferguson received a white substance in the mail that was feared to be anthrax. Many people were held in isolation after being exposed to the substance, but they were released after the police discovered that the powdery substance was beignet. Ferguson joked about the incident on the show, explaining, "Today someone sent an envelope packed with white powder to the show. I offered to taste it, but they said no." On April 15, 2013, the show followed the Boston Marathon bombing, beginning with Ferguson seated at his desk talking to his audience about the bombing, his feelings about them, and his personal relationship with the city of Boston, and the lack of a proper open and monologue for the show, stating that it would be insensitive at best to open with the show with his catchphrase, "It's a great day for America." He also explained the bombing might come up again during the show, saying, "This is on my mind, I can't pretend it's not there." Along with the monologue, the show omitted the opening sequence, the usual tweets and emails segment, and the usual "What did we learn on the show tonight, Greg?" segment at the end of the show. Jeff Peterson and Secretariat were also absent. During the show, Ferguson talked briefly about the bombings to his guests, Rob Lowe and Larry King. To end the show, Ferguson addressed his audience in Boston, saying, "Our thoughts are with you, and we'll see how it goes. Good luck to you." Time magazine later placed Ferguson's monologue at number 1 on its list of the top 10 late-night moments of 2013. Where the show found its success factor was not just with the serious interviews and topics being addressed, but a perfect meshing of those, along with the wacky, zany comedy of the show, to which they did easily to a T. From puppets in the cold opening to Craig and his crew lip-syncing to They Might Be Giants' Istanbul and Britney Spears' Oops, I Did It Again, the show was always a hot commodity for zany, over-the-top comedy, and a lot of it coming by pure accident. The episode on December 15, 2009 was the 1,000th of Ferguson's tenure as host, and to mark the occasion, the entire show was done with puppets. Wavy Rancheros filled in as host, delivering a brief monologue and interviewing the celebrity guests. The shark puppet was used for the Dear Aquaman skits, and Connery the Bull appeared in a Sean Connery holiday memory skits. Jason Segel appeared with a Dracula puppet performing the song Dracula's the Men from his film Forgetting Sarah Marshall, accompanied by the Broken West. The only time Ferguson himself appeared on camera, aside from the opening title sequence and the Dear Aquaman intro, was during the closing segments in which he was on stage with his Prince Charles costume, along with many of his puppets and crew members, while Wavy performed to James Taylor's recording of Carole King's You've Got a Friend. Ferguson was also seen during the closing credits, which showed various caption shots of behind-the-scenes action that took place during the episode's production. On April 5, 2010, Ferguson began featuring a robot sidekick skeleton, Jeff Peterson, played by Josh Robert Thompson. The robot was created by former Mythbuster Grant Imahara, according to a web article by Jeremy Kaplan, where Imahara became aware of Ferguson's idea to have a robot sidekick. He responded with a March 1, 2010 tweet saying, "I hear you are looking for a robot sidekick. I think I can help for a price. Get me 100,000 Twitter follows if you can." Ferguson subsequently came through with the followers, and Imahara came through with the robot. While Jeff began with pre-recorded phrases, Thompson voiced him live in studio for almost every episode since late June 2011, including those filmed in Paris and Scotland. 3 people are often given screen credit at the end of the show for being responsible for Jeff: Imahara, writer Tom Straw, and later Bob Oshkosh, and voice actor Thompson. Ferguson has stated that the robot is my metaphor for deconstructing the dead art of the form of the late-night TV show, and that he selected the name because of its commonness. Ferguson has jokingly referred to Jeff as an appliance, who is being used because the show's small budget does not perform a typical sidekick or band. But as the years progressed, mainly due to Thompson's performance, even Ferguson would admit that Jeff Peterson came to fully embody the very sidekick cliche that they intended to mock. Jeff has a running feud with recurring guest Christian Bell, who claims that she had wanted to be Craig's sidekick and was upset that Jeff was selected. Secretariat is a pantomime horse which first appeared on October 11, 2010, as a joke reference to the Disney film Secretariat, which had just came out at that time, based on the life of the 1973 Triple Crown winning racehorse Secretariat. The people playing Secretariat were Joshua Bolter and Ryan McGowan. Secretariat's appearances on the show would begin through a doorbell ring, which Ferguson would press randomly during the show. Even in the middle of an interview, Ferguson would ask, "Who's that at the door?" prompting Secretariat to enter and dance around the stage accompanied by techno music, with Ferguson, the guest, and the audience standing up to dance with him.
Dear Craig, Jeff, and Secretariat, who's that at the door? Who's that at the door? What? Who's that at the door? What's going on?
What's with the horse backstage?
What horse are you talking about? Who's that at the door? Secretariat, but we don't have time for Secretariat, so we'll just do a very quick out the door and in the door. All right, just a very quick one. Don't start. Who's that at the door? All right. Get out.
Secretariat would initially leave through where he entered, but later episodes were shown proceeding to his stall at the right-hand side of the stage. By December 2010, he had become a regular on the show, and Secretariat would often appear even if unprompted, such as in the cold opens or when he talked to him from his stall. Sometimes Secretariat would be provoked by Ferguson or tweets and email submission, causing him to angrily kick his stall open. Jeff would jokingly aggravate this situation by saying, "Kick his ass, man," though he varies in rooting for either Ferguson or Secretariat. Secretariat has appeared in several sketches, including one on January 7, 2011, with a clip of him being traveled to New York City to deliver a Christmas present to Jimmy Fallon, who competed against Fallon in the same time slot on Ferguson in the same time slot on NBC. In the clip, Secretariat would make appearances on other shows in New York, including Live with Regis and Kelly, The View, CBS News, Late Show with David Letterman. When Ferguson hosted the show from Paris during the week of August 2011, Secretary played a role in several locations. He again accompanied the show during its week of programs taped in Scotland in 2012, and also appeared in several background shots of ESPN remote shows during the show's visit to the Super Bowl in New Orleans in 2013. A following had been built around the false horse, with multiple fan pages existing on Facebook and several websites selling Team Secretariat t-shirts. Other characters like Sandra the Rhino, played by Dana DiLorenzo, who also played Beth, the CBS executive, and would later find success as Kelly Maxwell on Ash vs. Evil Dead, Alfredo Sauce and the Shy Fellows, the puppets known as notably Wavy Rancheros and Sid the Cussing Rabbit, were among the many of the show's recurring set pieces that helped to give the show its unique identity. Craig Ferguson was doing a lot of things with the show that only Conan O'Brien had done, and much like how O'Brien was seen as the eventual heir to the throne of The Tonight Show, everyone thought that Craig Ferguson was setting himself up to become the heir apparent to David Letterman once he retired. A reality that many believed was about to come sooner rather than later when on April 3, 2014, David Letterman announced that he would be retiring from The Late Show in 2015 and late-night television in general, which to many, myself included, was pretty much a guarantee that Craig Ferguson was going to be the successor and likely given more of an opportunity to succeed with Ferguson than NBC did with O'Brien as the host of The Tonight Show. But then not but a week later, CBS had already named Letterman's successor in Stephen Colbert, and naturally a lot of people were questioning, one, why CBS moved so quickly to name a new host and it not being the guy that was already working for them, and two, what did that mean for Craig Ferguson's future at the network? At the end of the month, we would get our answer, as on April 28th, Ferguson announced that he would be leaving The Late Late Show at the end of the year. His contract was set to expire in June 2014, but a 6-month extension was agreed on to provide a more graceful exit and give CBS more time to find a replacement host. He reportedly received $5 million as part of his contract because he was not selected as a representative for David Letterman's Late Show. Ferguson made the decision prior to Letterman's announcement, but he had agreed to delay making his own decision public until the reaction to Letterman's decision had died down. CBS Entertainment Chair Nina Tassler said, following the announcement that in his decade as the host of The Late Show, Ferguson had infused the broadcast with tremendous energy, unique comedy, insightful interviews, and some of the most heartfelt monologues seen on television. I always believed that Craig Ferguson never really got a chance to compete for that job before they gave it to Stephen Colbert. My idea of thinking that Ferguson was always seen as the likely heir to Letterman, so CBS would avoid a repeat of what happened at NBC with the numerous Tonight Show controversial changeovers. And that was my idea for many years, that Ferguson never really got a chance to compete for the job. But then about 5 years later, Craig put out a book, Riding the Elephant, which I highly recommend definitely checking out, and seeing inside the book that Ferguson was already expecting to end the show that year, and was getting ready to announce that he was leaving before Letterman announced his retirement. When he announced he was leaving, he basically said that his plan all along was to leave that year regardless. In a Variety article that came out the same day Ferguson left, Ferguson had been wanting to let people know of his plans to move on from The Late Late Show for months. The CBS late-night host also is resigned to the fact that few people will believe his assertion that he began thinking about ending his run on the show as long as 2 years ago. But he re-upped after CBS persuaded him to stick around a little longer. Early this year, he began laying the groundwork for his exit before he had any idea that Letterman was planning to announce his retirement in 2015. It wasn't contentious, I was just like, I feel like I'm done, Ferguson told Variety. We were all fine and were tying up loose ends, and then Dave surprised everybody with that April 3rd announcement, and that threw a spanner in the works. And I had to sit and keep my mouth shut while speculation raged wildly. Ferguson basically wanted to move on because the work was a chore. He's proud of the show and how oddball it is with a robot sidekick and stuffed horse for sidekicks. Which you gotta respect the man for not only going out on his own terms and wanting to still be funny, but not in the over-the-top way that made his show such a groundbreaker for the time. And the show really was a groundbreaking feat for the time. On December 19th, 2014, The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson aired its final episode with Jay Leno as the featured guest. In the cold open, Ferguson performed Dead Man Falls' song, Bang Your Drum, accompanied by Kevin Bacon, Kira Sedgwick plus Dog Lily, Jack Black, Kristen Bell, Pierce Brosnan, Steve Carell, Don Cheadle, Kristen Chenoweth, Mario Cotillard, Tenacious D, Jeff Daniels, Ted Danson, Kat Dennings, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Tony Hale, Carl Edwards, Cedric the Entertainer, John Hamm, Sean Hayes, Samuel L. Jackson, Rashida Jones, Toby Keith, Jimmy Kimmel, Mila Kunis, Lisa Kudrow, Jane Lynch, Justin Long, James Marsden, Matthew McConaughey, Mary McCormick, Joel McHale, Tim Meadows, Metallica, Kunal Nayyar, Jeff Peterson, Regis Philbin, Ray Romano, Bob Saget, William Shatner, Michael Sheen, Quentin Tarantino, Josh Robert Thompson, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Henry Winkler, Shailene Woodley, Weird Al Yankovic, Larry King, Angela Kinsey, Betty White, Thomas Lennon, Secretariat, and Ferguson's Bunny and Alligator Puppets in a pre-taped monologue which segued to the song continuing live in studio, with Ferguson singing back behind his occasional semi-house band Bone Patrol, Sex Pistols guitarist Steve Jones, and a choir of various celebrities, musicians, and friends of the show accompanying on stage. The What Did We Learn segment at the end of the show revealed Secretariat, the pantomime horse, to be Bob Newhart, at which point the segment became a parody of the Newhart series finale, with Ferguson as Mr. Wick from the Drew Carey Show waking up from a bad dream in bed with Drew Carey, revealing that the 10 years of the Late Late Show had been a bad dream. References to the series finale, of course, to St. Elsewhere and The Sopranos were also made. James Corden took over The Late Late Show in March of 2015, where the show did find the most success with its audience, the most success with social media, and the most success with the Emmys, as the James Corden era was the only late night run that was nominated for several Emmys during its 8-season run. Take that for what it's worth, I guess. But I've already delved into my thoughts about James Corden's era, which you can check out with the link in the corner. But Craig Ferguson, as for him, he continued to work after The Late Late Show ended. In October 2013, it was announced that Ferguson would host a syndicated game show, Celebrity Name Game, produced by David Arquette and Courtney Cox's production company, beginning in late 2014. Ferguson's involvement in the project date back to 2011, when it was originally pitched as a series for CBS. As of April 2014, the series had an initial order of 180 episodes and premiered on September 22, 2014. He would later win Emmys for his role as the host of the show, and the show ended after 3 seasons on December 2, 2016. Ferguson tried to get back to scripted comedy with a part in The King of 7B, with playing Prentice Porter, in 2015. The show, however, was not picked up. He would later go back to talk shows, doing a show on the History Channel called Join or Die with Craig Ferguson, the title a reference to a Benjamin Franklin political cartoon published in the Pennsylvania Gazette in May of 1754, which Ferguson had tattooed on his forearm after becoming an American citizen. Ferguson and a 3-guest panel of comedians and historians conducted a humorous discussion on a different topic of each episode, such as the most doomed presidential campaign, the greatest founding father, and the greatest invention, with others invited to share their opinions via Twitter. In 2021, he hosted the American game show The Hustler for ABC, which followed 5 contestants who collaborated to build a cash prize by answering a series of trivia questions presented by Ferguson, while one of the contestants is secretly designated as the Hustler beforehand and given all the answers to all the questions. By the end of the game, 2 of the most honest contestants have been eliminated. The other 2 must correctly choose the Hustler in order to stop the Hustler from winning the entire prize. The show premiered on January 4th, 2021, before moving into its regular time slot on January 7th, and in April 2022, it was canceled after 2 seasons. In January of 2023, Sony Pictures Television announced a new half-hour syndicated late-night talk show with Craig Ferguson as host. Channel Surfer Craig Ferguson will be produced by Whisper North and will be distributed by Sony Pictures Television. A pilot for Channel Surf with Craig Ferguson was shot in the UK that month at Dock 10 Studios, and Sony Pictures Television will take the show out to potential buyers in Los Angeles. When Craig Ferguson took over The Late Late Show in 2005, he created something very unique and different from what other late-night shows had done. It's the most unique late-night series since the original Johnny Carson run of The Tonight Show, and it's incredibly funny and over the top. Craig Ferguson took a simple job and made it his own by not only having guests and occasionally a musical number, but also adding in puppets, a robot sidekick, a stalker horse, and just a lot of randomness. It's so hilarious to watch, and it's worth watching every time.
What did we learn on the show tonight, Craig?
So with all that said, what did we learn on the show tonight? We learned that Craig Ferguson in general is just a fascinating individual. He was a guy that was about to kill himself very early in his life because of his addictions, and he went on to have this great career. His Late Late Show is still one of the best late-night shows I've ever seen. Anybody who can be incredibly funny while also being very informative and serious about his personal life and his troubled past on national television definitely deserves a lot more credit than he is given.
I have found that the only way I could deal with it is find other people who had similar experiences and talk to them. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost a thing. And they're very, very easy to find. They're very near the front of the telephone book. Good luck.
It's hard to stay up, it's been a long, long day, and you got the Sandman at the door. But hang on, leave the TV on, and let's do it anyway. It's okay, you can always sleep through work tomorrow, okay? Hey, hey, tomorrow's just your future yesterday. Tear the cork off the wall, forget the wake-up call, 'cause the night's not nearly through. Wipe the sleep from your eyes, give yourself a surprise. Let your worries wait another day. And if you stay too late at the bar, at least you made it out this far. So make up your mind and say